of throw them off,
Right.
and they don't really know what to do.
Right.
And will that cause
and that's
also
a
a little
trigger.
bit of that reverting back and just isolate again? Because as opposed to not knowing how to move to that thing that's just been thrown at you, you just pull back.
You can get two sides of the coin. You can either get a person who may isolate, or you might get a person who may snap. You know, and you get, you know, when I go to VA, when I take those trips down to VA, I see both. You know, when people are not able to get what they need, you know, I see some who isolate. You know, they just kind of go home and they're frustrated. Or you got those at VA. You know, they about ready to John Q the situation.
Oh yeah.
You know.
Yeah, and I think I've seen you in both of those scenarios.
Yes, I have.
Where you have. And it does, and this is the thing about it, it doesn't take a major issue to go John Q.
No.
It can be a minor something that all we got to do is just do this little thing right here and it's done. But because it's not in sequence, or it got thrown in there off the program, it now becomes combative.
Yes.
You become combative.
Yes.
And so then now you go into, is that your way to push us away, or what do you think is the reason for to be combative? Is it to leave you alone and don't pressure you about it?
Well, it depends what the situation is. Like you were saying, when let's just take VA for it. You know, the issue. A lot of us that deal with PTSD, you know, we deal with some form of medication.
Right.
Either it's, you know, something that helps us sleep, or something that helps you operate on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
And with medication, you have to deal with, you know, getting refills and being up to speed on that, so that you can get the best out of your day every day.
Right.
So when it's time to refill and stuff like that, you have people that abuse the system. You got people who don't really need medication, but like the medication for what it does.
The drug aspect.
Right.
Okay.
So if I'm trying to get a refill on something that I need for tomorrow, or maybe next week, and I'm running out this week, I'm gonna be done with it Wednesday.
Right.
So that means Thursday and Friday I'm not gonna have my medication.
Right.
So for me, they'll tell me that they can't give me Thursday and Friday, that I need to call in, you know, prior to.
Right.
But I used to tell them that calling in, the shipment takes longer. So I would rather call in and go pick up my medication.
Right.
So before, they didn't like that. So they gave me a big, you know, rundown with that. And I remember you being there with me, you know, going up there, fussing, you having to calm me down, you know, pretty much like, hey, baby, you know, don't hurt nobody up here.
We good.
Right.
Right.
And when I got on the system, it started working for me.
Right.
You know, I was able to get my medication like I needed.
Right.
I call it in the day of, I go down and I pick it up, I worked it. Now, if something happened and I wasn't able to do that, I would literally get mad.
Right.
I'm talking about enraged.
Because that has broken your routine.
Right.
And now, and especially when you feel that this is something that you need.
Right.
It's getting in between you and your need, and so you become enraged and you feel like, you know, I'm gonna do something about this.
Yeah, and you literally want to hurt somebody.
I know.
I mean, that's how, and I'm a warm-hearted, kind guy, so I can imagine, and righteous that is, and I can only imagine for somebody who doesn't have that type of morals or a belief system, you know, they be in the same situation and then now faced with the same opportunity.
Right.
They take a different approach.
Right.
Where I got a support system, and then I got the Holy Spirit that says, hey, you know, don't lose it, JR.
Right.
You know, you need to keep it together.
Right.
Hey, you don't need to be behind bars. Hey.
Right.
But for some soldiers, that's why you got some of these, you know, soldiers who are, you know, going to jobs, shooting people, going to other places. Right. You know, they check their background. They were former soldiers because they don't have that moral compass. They don't have that Holy Spirit within them to stop them.
Right.
Because once they become enraged, then they just do.
Right. Well, now that we've gone there, because I did want to ask about that, you know, I do know that even though you have PTSD, you are, yes, that righteous man. You're a minister of the gospel. You're a future pastor of World Changers Tabernacle. And all of those things, you know, especially at one point, those things were overwhelming for you in your mind to grasp. Because it was just, you know, you could not see yourself there from where you were when you first got back.
Right.
And so dealing with this on a regular basis, PTSD, and being this man of God, talk in there. How do you, what's your routine of maintaining that righteous standard while yet battling in your mind the battle that you have with PTSD?
Well, first, let me say I still feel that it's a work in progress.
It is.
I don't feel like I have it mastered. But what I do know is that I can't quit. I think that's the biggest thing that keeps me going, is that I know that I have a purpose, and I know that people are watching. And if I can be an example, as Christ was, to the people, to the masses about, you know, being different, and having a love for God and having a love for people, to make a difference in others, you know, that's worth the battle.
Right.
That's worth the fight, and that's worth to get up every day. So I don't have it mastered. I would be, you know, lying before you and God Himself to say I have it mastered.
Right.
But what I do know is that I am unable to quit. You know, I got 2 boys that, you know, see the world in me. I got a wife. You know, I got every reason to push forward when it comes to ministry. I honestly don't know what I'm doing, but what I do know is I can't quit.
Right.
So I think that's my biggest push on every day, and that's what allows me to get better. That's what allows me to go to my treatment, to stay on my medication regimen, right, to not be so easily to give up.
Right. Well, in all of that too, I know that you have the mindset that, you know, I'm pushing for my family, I'm pushing for my wife, my children, and in all of that, I still want people to understand that just like a person with no legs is getting up every day to do whatever they could do for their family, if you get to a place, a facility that doesn't have access for wheelchairs, that we have to make accommodations. We have to be able to shift and be able to give you all what you need to be able to get into the facility. And I know that even for us here at World Changes, that's something that we have made it known, PTSD awareness. You know, in other words, there are some stipulations that we have for our leadership, but also we also want to be mindful that this might not be a good day. And if someone, because you're not the only one at the church who has PTSD and that deals with it, but we have to be accommodating and be willing to assist as opposed to cutting down, because sometimes the symptoms of PTSD can look like lazy, right?
Most times it looks
unengaging.
It looks combative.
It looks combative.
PTSD looks combative. It looks
like you're going against the grain.
Like you just want to do your own thing.
Right. It may even look like you're bucking against leadership. And in actuality, you're not bucking against leadership. It's the mind, especially when it's like turning on a dime stuff that wasn't planned and readily in the mind, ready to put into your day, to schedule a last minute, you know, early morning meeting you know, I know those throw you for a loop.
Right.
Last minute, early morning meeting, ministers got to be here at 8 o'clock. For you, that's a hard one.
Right.
And then everyone's PTSD is not the same. Some getting up in the morning, that's not the issue.
Right.
And then some getting up in the morning is the issue, or something like that. Can you speak to that? Because sometimes we try to lump y'all all together. In actuality, you all deal with it in very different ways sometimes.
Yeah. Well, it just depends on what the soldier has took on. You know, for me, never had a problem getting up since a little kid.
Right.
I mean, I would get up, hit the alarm clock before the alarm clock went off.
Right.
That's the kind of, I mean, I grew up in a military family.
Yes.
So, I mean, you aware of this?
I'm aware.
Okay. So, getting up was never the problem.
Right.
But when I started to lose the quality of sleep, I was, you know, sleeping 2 hours up, 2 hours up, 2 hours up.
And that's with nightmares and stuff
Nightmares, just not being able to go to sleep at all. I saw where it was affecting my next day.
Right.
You know, I wasn't being interactive with my kids, not interacting with my wife, not being interactive with people, isolating, a lot of more isolation,
right,
a lot of more sleeping the next day. So when I got my medication to help me sleep, it really helped me sleep. Like, it took me down.
Like like a dart.
Like a tranquilizer. Right on the leg. Fat. So now, you know, my days, it's hard getting up because I take that medication.
Right.
And it makes me feel, you know, sometimes I feel like I'm unable, like I really am disabled, because you know, there's certain things I want to do,
right,
especially when it comes to ministry or just anything you want to do in general.
Right.
Sometimes you got to get up early to do it. But I know that when I take this medication, it alleviates that. It takes that away from me. So sometimes it's bittersweet.
Right.
Because I do get sleep and rest that, you know,
you need it.
I need.
Right.
But at the same time, I don't feel like I can pitch in and help.
Because it debilitates you the next morning to be able to rise early.
To really rise. It's really a fight. Like,
but I think that's the thing that maybe you might need to grasp. You know, just like most of us, when we look at you, oh, JR, just normal guy. It is a disability.
Right.
And that maybe that's the thing you need to grab, that, you know, that you have a disability. And so rising early in the morning because you've had to take medication the night before in order to be able to rest and not have insomnia.
Right.
The next morning, because you're pulled down from it, don't feel like you are slacking, because it's a disability. It's like asking a man who has no legs, without the assistance of a wheelchair, to run alongside of another man that has legs and be as competent as he is in running. You can't compare the two, and maybe that's something maybe
but
you need to grab.
that's the if all soldiers could get that, then we wouldn't have 22. I mean, that's the grasp. You know, soldiers are checking out because they're looking back to how they used to be.
Right.
And then they're seeing now what they are. And they're not able to grasp that. It literally tears you down. Because when you can't give your best, or what you feel is, you know, your part in the fight of life,
Right.
you know, then you feel like, well, I shouldn't give at all.
So you feel like I'm useless,
Right.
so to speak. I remember one time you said something about I can see my disability, and I don't want my sons to see it.
Right.
I don't want them to witness your lack,
Right.
or your inability.
Right.
Talk to that a little bit. What troubled you so much about that?
Well, I can remember, I think one day this was right when when I started dealing with it. You know, I went to war. Let me tell you how you can go through suppressing PTSD. And this is anybody.
Right.
I went to war in 06, 07. I didn't start seeing a counselor till 2014.
Right.
So you talking about 7 years of just nothing. No counselor, no nothing, not seeing nobody. 7 years of suppression, you know. And that's what happens to a lot of soldiers.
Right.
We suppress
Right.
or self-medicate. You know,
Right.
drinking, drugs, life, party, whatever. Just whatever to take your mind off.
Right.
So when I got back in 07, I was into the partying, the drinking, all that stuff. So when I got in 2009, when I gave my life back to Christ, I didn't have those elements no more.
Right.
I didn't have the self-medication.
Right.
You know, drinking, drugging,
Right.
running the street.
Right.
So I was faced with it, I felt, on another level, because now I'm staring PTSD in the face and it's looking at me and I don't know what to do with it. So from 2009 to 2014, it was bad years for me because I didn't have nobody to go to and I wasn't dealing with it. So now I was taking it out on my wife, I was taking it out on y'all, I was taking it out on people that were around me because I didn't know how to deal with it.
Right.
And I remember I was sitting, I think Jeremiah was maybe 2
Right.
or 3. He was young. And I'm laying on the ground. And I might have been crying, or but I just remember being not myself. And Jeremiah comes to me, you know, he's just this loving little boy.
He is.
And he comes to me and says, "Daddy, you're not feeling well, you need a hug." And he lays his head on my chest. And that was the best feeling ever. But it hurt me because I felt that my son knew I wasn't feeling, he knew I wasn't me.
Right.
And I felt weak. I felt inadequate because I got a 3-year-old that can recognize that his dad is not his dad. And what the fear was is that as I get older, they get older, and that they can recognize that. And I never wanted my sons to necessarily not see me weak, but not see me disabled. You know what I mean? Like, it's a difference to me.
Yeah.
It's okay for them to see me weak because, you know, I can't always be strong, you know, but to be disabled, you know, that's the ability or the inability to do something.
Right.
And I didn't ever want my kids, because I tell my kids they can do anything, but I myself can't do anything.
Right.
You know, I
Right.
can't do everything because of a disability.
But I think that with counseling, it gives you a better perspective in that.
Right.
Because that's not your mindset today.
No.
Is that, but that was one time an issue that you did not want your sons to see you, for them to get older and recognize more and more that my daddy is broken.
Right.
And so that used to be a fear of yours. And then of course, with counseling, you've learned to be okay with that, and that your sons will truly love you unconditionally in spite of, to even say, even when my daddy broken, I love my dad.
Right.
And so that's not the issue anymore. So you have learned to balance with your, let's say with your spouse. I know that can be a push and a pull.
Right. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Marriage and
Yeah.
PTSD is a very difficult combination, because a lot of times you just want to be by yourself, alone, and just kind of cope with it in your own little box. But now you have to interact not only with children, but with a spouse. And with a woman, you have to be sensitive. And sometimes the PTSD doesn't allow you to
It
reach.
strips that sensitivity.
Yeah, and then it can be a little harsh. That's when I get a phone call, you know.
Yeah, that's normally every Friday for you.
It's not anymore.
You get a weekly progress report of me.
Ma, you better come get him.
Yeah.
But you know what? I have to applaud your wife, because I
Yes.
know that she has been a great support to you and in your the progress that you've made in PTSD and in your coping. She has been phenomenal, and although I get phone calls and I have to encourage her, to this will get better. Hang in there, and to remind her, yeah, he loves you, and she remembers, yes, I know he loves me. But we women, we're sensitive to affection, and sometimes that's a break in there with PTSD. Sometimes that ability to touch and feel and understand what a woman might be going through, that for you can sometimes be a tough place when you're reaching to her or trying to make sure that the marriage is good.
Right.
So what have you done to help that area? Because I know that was a struggle one time.
Yeah. Well, for the most part, the mind of a soldier when you're not, it's almost like I used to watch the National Geographic, and you ever seen like the lion or the whatever the animal is, when they're hurt significantly, they never died with the people around them.
With the other animals,
They never did that. It was like they kind of went away, isolated themselves, and then they died.
Right.
And that's what a lot of soldiers do. They, for the ones they love, they don't want them to see them in this place. They don't want to see them, I don't want you to feel that I don't love you. I don't want you to feel like I'm cutting you or I'm being combative. So the isolation, most times, sometimes with the women, feel like we don't love you. The cutoff is because now we're trying to get away to sort of like die, in a sense. And sometimes too physically, it can turn there. So I used to do that a lot with Bonnie when I first started dealing with it. I didn't know how to deal with it. So immediately I would just cut off. I would shut off. And I would kind of like just be to myself because I felt like I needed that moment to step away, to kind of die. And it was the worst thing I could ever do because she needed to know that I'm in a fight with her. And that's what counseling and you and Dad allowed me to see, is that even though I'm in a weak state and I'm hurt, I'm literally open. My wound is showing that, be with her in that moment. Allow her to see my weakness. Allow her to be a part of the moment. And we work it out together rather than going somewhere and dying. Because it just not only hurts me, it hurts her. And that's what I learned in a few years of, coping with PTSD. Is that immediate shutdown that we want to go away and die, don't want to be around our kids, don't want to be around our family, don't want to be around. We have to take a different approach and learn to be exposed and hurt in front of our family and the ones that love us, and allow them to see that, and allow them to mend the hurt, and allow them to be there, even if they don't even do nothing, just to be there.
Just to be there, just to know that y'all are one. And I know that with affection, with you, you're a very affectionate person. One of the things I used to always just almost cry about when you first got back is that you used to give the best hugs. You just like a bear. Excuse me. And then there was this kind of like little dish rag kind of pat thing where it was hard for you to embrace and really, hold. And so I think that I've watched you evolve back to that person that's able to show that affection. Even with your wife, I've seen you being able to embrace her again, and so I'm thankful for the counseling. I have to say, there's kudos to counselors who do this every day for our soldiers and for our veterans, because it's just a part of the process. If you don't get the counseling, there is no coping.
Yeah.
It's hard to cope without the counseling.
And with counseling, you have to find, and this is, I want to really speak this to the soldiers, you know, don't judge one counselor. You know, you have to find the right counselor. Because for me, I went through a slew of counselors.
Yep.
And I found this one lady, Miss Tiffany, and she has allowed me to be different. I mean, she opened my mind to a lot of different things.
Right.
But if I would have gave up on counseling in the beginning stages,
I remember.
I would have never met Miss Tiffany.
Right. Because I went to one counselor,
and all he did was talk about his war, because he was a former veteran.
Right.
And all he did was talk about his war.
I know
stories.
he felt better when we left because we listened to his whole stories.
Yeah.
And so,
right.
But, I mean, you wasn't getting very much out of it.
I wasn't.
But I think he was for the better.
That's when I was getting mad.
Yeah. And so we had to let him go,
right.
And then we had to find another counselor. And this counselor we went from one counselor that talked too much to the next counselor wouldn't say anything. A
counselor that was over the top. I mean, had me in there breathing techniques. I don't know what I was doing.
Well, you know what? This show has been great. This is what it's all about: awareness, making ourselves aware of what's going on in our community, in our churches. We have men and women who have served and served faithfully to our military that have come back broken and distraught. They need us. They need us to understand. They need us to support. They need us to help them, and they need us to undergird them. And so for those who are suffering with PTSD, go get the help. If you know someone else who is suffering from PTSD that hasn't got the help, help them to get what they need. Send someone or send a family member a message. Anything we can to help them out. They need us. They have served and served well, and our appreciation to them is to help them to make it back as best as they can to a normal life. And so for you, everyone who has joined us today, continue to support our soldiers. They're still fighting a war. The war came home with them in disabilities. And so I say to you all, thank you, and we'll meet you all back here again next week at the Round Table.
World Changes Tabernacle, led by Prophet Prathan Powell, is a word-based church committed to seeing you win. We're called to create a loving and caring community for all people and work together for justice and peace in our world. Recognizing that our spiritual journeys are all different, we strive to be respectful and inclusive concerning each individual's relationship with God. We believe that Christianity is a lifestyle, and we're committed to teaching, learning, and living the Word of God. It's more than a song, more than a shout, more than a dance. Whether you're a committed follower of Christ or just curious about God, you are invited to visit with us. Give us a call or check out our website for more information or to see our sermon times.